The fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering bundled lesson packages including rental equipment and lift tickets. Online registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better. The fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping Western Mass families achieve greater energy independence through solar power, battery systems, and air source heat pumps. Northeast-solar.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Glee Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we get ready to maple in Conway at Boyden Brothers Maple as Mass Maple Month launches this weekend.
Let's get ready to maple. But first, the State of the Union happened this week.
A full month after our own State of the Commonwealth.
Doesn't that usually happen at the end of January?
Late January, early February, but nothing is happening the way it's supposed to.
But to help us navigate the singular sensation and suppositions that made up the 2026 State of the Union address is the Congressman for the 2nd Congressional District, Jim McGovern.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Did you survive the blizzard of 2026?
Well, I'm in D.C. I mean, we're now on our issues retreat in Virginia. But it took my wife came down for this, and all her flights got canceled, so she had to take a train, which took like double the time.
Oh my word!
Because the tracks, yeah. So, but yeah, and more snow coming. They're saying I don't even
I have to check in with Dave Hayes, the weather nut on that one, but that's what I'm hearing. Yeah. How many inches
yeah,
did you get in Worcester?
yeah. Close to 2 feet.
Wow, geez. We only got like 4 or 5 inches in Turners, but my dad, who lives near Boston, got like 30-something inches. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, but anyway, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
I used to love the snow, but now I can't stand it. But anyway,
I used to hate the snow, and I had to wake up at 2:15 to do my morning show, and now I actually don't mind it as much. Anyway. It's time for our weekly check-in with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Worcester's own Congressman Jim McGovern, in a segment we call McGoverning with McGovern. We talked last week, Congressman, about how you were going to skip the State of the Union address, and the Daily Hampshire Gazette columnist Anthony Calamari has, Camilleri, I like the food calamari, but he's Camilleri, has a headline in the Gazette, McGovern kneels slam Trump's State of the Union address. You were posting, like live tweeting it, even though you weren't there, calling it dystopian, demented rambling, lying so much it would make Kim Jong-un blush. Yeah. What was your take on the State of the Union, apart from the little glimpse I gave into how you've been looking at it?
I mean, you kind of summed up my feelings there. I mean, look, I said I'd rather stick needles in my eyeballs than sit there for over 2 hours, the longest State of the Union address in history, and listen to one lie after another after another. I mean, I really think that Trump lives in a bubble. I mean, maybe he thinks everything is beautiful. And I suppose it is if you are rich enough to spend time at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, for the Epstein class, the multimillionaires and billionaires, life is good. You're getting the biggest tax cut in history for millionaires and billionaires. You're getting all kinds of sweetheart deals. These big corporations are getting all these wonderful gifts from this administration. If you're the pesticide industry, you should be thrilled because they're rolling back all of the regulations on pesticides and chemicals in our food. So, I mean, for that group, they're doing great. But for everybody else, for working people, for people who are struggling, no, this economy sucks. Let me put it plainly. The price of everything is too high. These tariffs are a tax on the American people. The Supreme Court, to their credit, ruled that they're unconstitutional. And the president had once said that if the Supreme Court makes that decision, he'll give everybody a refund. Well, he's back down on that now. So people aren't getting a refund, even though they're paying more. He's saying, I'm going to fight this in court for the next 5 years. I mean, this guy does not care about regular people. He just doesn't. I thought it was one lie after another after another. Yeah, it was. I was nice to see the hockey team, and he's giving medals to everybody. That's great. But I mean, really, that's what the State of the Union is about. That it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be about a commentary on like where we are as a country. And the last thing I'm going to say is I kind of agree with Thomas Jefferson. The State of the Union maybe should be submitted in writing. Jefferson insisted on that because he thought presidents going before Congress and giving these kind of rah-rah speeches was more what you would expect from a king, and not from a leader of a constitutional democracy. I thought it was lousy.
Well, Jefferson also famously said the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's the kind of statement that we should be making right now during the State of the Union,
Yeah.
but it is the constitutional obligation for the State of the Union to happen. It doesn't need to happen the way that it happens in a big
Right.
televised spectacle like it
Right.
has happened and continues to become more and more of a spectacle. And sometimes the spectacle, there are people on both sides of the aisle that are causing the spectacle.
Right.
There was, of course, Al Green was ushered out of the chamber. In some more dramatic fashion, Marcelo Gomes, who was a guest of Massachusetts Representative Seth Moulton, was escorted out because there was a threat he might be arrested because of his immigration status. Meanwhile, Ilhan Omar's guest, Aliyah Raymond, who is a U.S. citizen but was dragged from her vehicle by ICE, was charged with unlawful conduct during the State of the Union address and also ushered out. What's your take on those things that happened during the State of the Union address?
Yeah, look, I mean, I had a chance to meet with Marcelo, by the way, just briefly, in the Capitol. And here's the sad thing. Trump, when he talked about cracking down on immigration, he said he was going to go after the worst of the worst. And he lied. He's going after the best of the best. When this is a guy who, by all accounts, is an incredible member of the community. He wants to be a member of Congress someday, and I believe he will. These are the kind of people we should celebrate in this country. And these are the people that Trump is targeting. And it really is disgusting. For Ilhan Omar, to have the President of the United States kind of demonize and ridicule her state and her community, there's only so much people can take. And I'm sorry, when you lie and you say all these kinds of things, don't be surprised when some members of Congress have had enough and call out your BS. And that's what she did. And Al Green, his poster was protesting the president's racist depiction of Barack and Michelle Obama. He had their faces, superimposed on apes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the president of the United States who did that. I mean, the racist, streak in this president, is, we've never seen this before. So blatant in a president. And he does this all the time. And here's what shocks me is that nobody on the Republican side seems to care. I mean, the president went on for over 2 hours and didn't talk once about how he's going to lower the cost of living for anybody. I mean, all he said was everything is beautiful. We're winning. Everybody's so tired of winning. People are saying, please, Mr. President, don't win anymore. I guess you may feel that way if you spend your time at Mar-a-Lago. But if you're a working family, forget about it. These tariffs are a tax on you. You're paying more. And life is tough. And I always talked about going to war in Iran. People don't want a war in Iran. They want the president and the Congress to focus in on how to lower the cost of living for everybody, make life better for people in this country. That's where our attention should be. And hopefully in the midterm elections, we'll have a big change.
Well, we are in the lead up to the midterm elections, and the polling numbers with Republicans in regards to the economy, as you mentioned, and with immigration are sort of underwater. There was a moment during the State of the Union address where the president asked lawmakers to stand if they agree that the first duty of American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. As the president said, Democrats stayed seated, Republicans stood up. It was a made-for-TV moment. But knowing that there is some debate and some unpopularity in the way that the Trump administration and Republicans writ large have been dealing with immigration, there is also some chatter that there may be a new immigration bill afoot. Are you hearing anything about this, that the Republicans might come to the table with something that perhaps could maybe be amenable to Democrats and Republicans when it comes to immigration?
Well, I haven't seen anything, and I haven't really heard anything about that. The president spent his time talking about immigration, demonizing immigrants. I mean, he didn't talk about the value of our immigrant community when it comes to helping to work with our farmers in agriculture, or immigrants who have come to this country who have worked in our assisted living facilities, or who have come and have been great researchers to help us find cures to diseases and illnesses that we're all dealing with right now. He didn't talk about anything about that. He didn't even talk about our immigrant heritage. I mean, all he did was demonize immigrants, as he's been doing consistently since he started to run for office again, basically saying they're all rapists and murderers. I mean, that's what he did. And when the president said, they made that comment about, stand up if you want to protect American citizens over illegal immigrants. I mean, that's offensive. We all take an oath to uphold the Constitution when we get sworn into the United States Congress. Every one of us does. This president, has contempt for the Constitution. I mean, his tariffs have been ruled unconstitutional. Going to war with Iran or going to war with Venezuela, that's unconstitutional. They weren't attacked. He needs to come to Congress for that authorization. Rescinding money for projects in states where he doesn't like the representative. Again, he doesn't have the authority to do that. Only Congress can do that. He violates the Constitution every single day, and the Republicans, like a cult, just bow down to him. I mean, this is unbelievable. I would like somebody in a future State of the Union to say, if you believe that your duty is to uphold the Constitution of the United States and your service to the American people, stand up. I don't know how the Republicans could stand up if that were the question, because they allow all this to happen. And it really is, it's depressing and it's unfortunate. And again, it underscores the importance of these midterm elections. I mean, everything rides on these midterm elections. And I worry because he slipped up a little bit in the State of the Union. He said, this should be my third term. I mean, this is a guy who thinks that he doesn't have to follow any of the rules. And I worry about how he's going to use the Department of Homeland Security to intimidate people from showing up to the polls in the midterms. He knows what's about to happen. He knows what's coming. And I think the only tool in the toolbox that he has left is to try to illegally intimidate voters from showing up.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern, the congressman skipped out on the State of the Union in the chambers, but Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and other Democrats invited to the chambers victims of Jeffrey Epstein. The House Oversight Committee members are going to be in Chappaqua, New York today, I believe, to interview Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton under oath but behind closed doors, which they were reluctant to do behind closed doors. Meanwhile, both NPR and the New York Times reporting this week that the Justice Department did not release key records in the Epstein files about a woman who made an unverified accusation against Donald Trump, saying that Trump assaulted her in the 80s when she was a minor. There are other publications, I'll say, reporting that she made all of this up. But Democrats are pushing Pam Bondi for the release of the Justice Department's withheld documents. There is another take on this, that the Justice Department said they insisted that the only material that was withheld was either duplicative or contained material subject to attorney-client privilege that was part of an ongoing federal investigation. Yeah. So, is Trump part of an ongoing federal investigation by his own Justice Department and Pam Bondi right now?
It's hard for me to believe, given Pam Bondi's behavior, that she's investigating the President of the United States. It's more likely that she's covering up for the President of the United States. And look, I have no problem with questioning Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton. I think everybody who is named in those files should be questioned. Not everybody is guilty of something, but if you're named in those files, you should be questioned. And I give both Hillary and Bill Clinton credit for saying, you know what, release all the files. You want to question us? Question us live in public so that you don't cherry pick whatever you want to cherry pick to try to distort what in fact was said in those interviews. Chairman Comer does not want to do that, whatever. So the Clintons are going to be interviewed. I don't know what Hillary has to do with Jeffrey Epstein, but whatever. I mean, she'll do that today. Bill will do that tomorrow. And that's fine. But what about the President of the United States? He is mentioned in the Epstein files over 5,000 times. He's mentioned more in the Epstein files than Harry Potter is mentioned in the Harry Potter books. I mean, that's just the fact. And yet he's above all this. And we now have this new issue, which you just raised, about files that are being withheld that involve a 14-year-old woman, a girl, who claims that she was abused by Donald Trump. Well, you know what? We need to know that. We need to know. And apparently, again, obviously, we have to respect attorney-client privilege, and we have to respect the privacy of this individual if, in fact, she still wants to be private. But my understanding is the reason why she didn't come forward because she was afraid of retribution. And I met with a number of the Epstein survivors who were there for the State of the Union, before the State of the Union. I mean, these women have endured the worst nightmares you can imagine. They're afraid. They're afraid for their lives because they're getting threatened every time they make a statement on this. People who are loyal to Trump threaten them, and they're afraid of retribution. I mean, they've lived through this terrible nightmare with Jeffrey Epstein, and now they're living through another terrible nightmare with this administration. The President of the United States, like Pam Bondi, didn't even have the decency. He knew they were there to acknowledge their presence, to say how sorry he was that they endured what they went through. I mean, it's not in him to do that. And again, it's a disgusting chapter in American history, but we can't move on until we know the truth and until justice is done. I mean, Prince Andrew is being questioned. The former U.S. ambassador to the U.K., has been arrested. I mean, in other places around the world, high-ranking officials and business leaders are being pushed to the side. They're paying a price. Here in this country, I mean, when it comes to Donald Trump and the people around him, it's like, oh, no big deal. That's fine. We're above all this. That's just wrong. And we can't let that stand.
More with Congressman Jim McGovern as he tackles what's giving him hope this weekend, his projections for the upcoming policy conference with the Democrats, and an insightful listener question about where to fact-check your findings.
Then we head to the Hill Towns to celebrate the opening of maple season with a sugaring operation that is internationally recognized at Boyden Brothers Maple in Conway.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering in-person and online graduate programs in public policy and data analytics. Admissions now open at umass.edu/SPP.
We're speaking with Congressman Jim McGovern. A listener question from Julie from the Fabulous 413, she writes, and then she says, can I write that or is it trademarked? Well, technically it is trademarked, but we will allow it. Greetings, I'm about to head to my hometown and I know old friends and I will gather with will avoid talking about politics as they don't want our time together to get divisive. I feel it's important to me that we take the opportunity to share our views and why. She asks, I'm curious if Representative McGovern or others will share a reputable source for statistics that I can reference. For example, hearing that ICE officials plan to spend $38.3 billion on facilities to hold immigrants, that's Heather Cox Richardson point, it's important to understand not only the moral and legal sides of this, but put the money in context. I'm curious to explore statistics that can provide context not only about what it costs to have immigrants in the U.S., combating the idea of sopping up resources, such as how much in taxes do immigrants contribute, how many immigrants actually fit the profile of what the administration said they were going after during the campaigning. If having conversations with folks who do not share the same political views, it's important to have facts. She wants to know, where do you get your facts on these things, Congressman McGovern?
Well, I get them from a number of places. I get them from the Congressional Research Service, the Library of Congress. I get them from, government statistics. I get them from, reputable news sources. I get them from think tanks. I get them from a variety of places. And on any of those questions that, you want us to provide you a kind of a list of sources, for example, for how much immigrants contribute to the overall economy of the United States. I mean, contact my office, reference this conversation we're having here, and I'm happy to provide them for you. But there are statistics and there are sources, reputable sources, and even some very right-wing sources that, will back up the value of immigrants to our country and in terms of what they provide in terms of tax revenue. And I hope that the statistics enough and sources are enough to persuade people to maybe take a second look. But one of the frustrations I've had with my colleagues in Congress is that isn't enough. And again, I've said this before on the show. One of the biggest disappointments to me, is not the true believers who actually buy into conspiracy theories and this kind of fake news that Trump puts out there. But the biggest disappointment to me are the people who will say to you privately, this is all BS. This is not, I know this is not true. This is crazy. This is disruptive. This is not good for our country. And then publicly will say the opposite. I don't like you better because you agree with me and then you vote the opposite way. I mean, we have to have the courage of our convictions, especially now. And I get it, for Republicans in Congress, it's particularly difficult because Trump is all about retribution. Look what's happening to Tom Massey in Kentucky. I mean, Trump is raising tens of millions of dollars to try to defeat him. His family has become a target. I get that. People don't want to go through that. But you know what? The times demand courage. And if you're not willing to stand up, then you maybe need to rethink what you're doing. Maybe you need to do something else because it's not going to be easy to stop a demagogue. It's not going to be easy to stop forces that want to undercut our system of government in this country, our checks and balances, our democracy. But we need people to do that. We need people to stand up. And, again, I look at these Epstein survivors and I'm like, the courage that these women have showing up and oftentimes being ridiculed by powerful people in government, but it's showing up because, what happened to them was unforgivable. It was immoral. It was horrific. And they just want justice. And people have died. have taken their lives because they've been so overcome with grief and depression because of what they went through. We all have to have courage at this time. We all have to push back, and I'm happy to provide sources on any topic if requested.
All right. Well, I'm going to email on Julie's behalf Kobe in your Northampton office, who I have to email every week for some reason or another because of the show, which I feel so bad pestering him. However, that's what I guess your job is to do. House Democrats are day 2 of, you mentioned this earlier, a policy conference in Leesburg, Virginia. I know Ron Chernow, is he going to be, have you seen him already? The historian who wrote
I have not yet. I'm
okay.
I think tonight.
Okay, good. He's the one who wrote the Hamilton book that inspired the musical that consumed 5 years of my life, quite literally. And I know Heather Cox Richardson's supposed to be there, who spams my inbox as well every single day with all, no, I'm just kidding. I love it. But what do you think will be the main policy issues that are coming up in this policy conference with House Democrats in Virginia right now?
I think we need to talk about, not just what we're against, but what we're for, and what we would do if we were able to reclaim the House or the Senate or both chambers. Now, where our focus is going to be. When we talk about affordability, what are the things we can do, to actually address that issue? And, we had Abigail Spanberger, who's now governor of Virginia, who was our former colleague.
Coolest name in all of Democratic politics, in my name. Spanberger, right. Delicious.
Yeah, but talking about, that what people are looking for, is not a litany of like things that wouldn't it be nice that you can achieve, but instead people want a list of things that are doable, that are possible, that can actually move us in a better direction. And so we heard from her last night. We have breakout sessions today on how to deal with the high cost of healthcare, on how we deal with our rising cost of groceries. We're going to have foreign policy panels, and talking about how do we protect our democracy. How we deal with some of the racist and homophobic and bigoted stuff that comes out of the White House. How we address them to actually make people understand that what he's saying is wrong. Again, we just started last night, but I mean, I'm hoping that next couple of days are going to be informative, and we'll come out of here with some, more concrete ideas that we can bring to the American people about what we would do if we were able to win, and what we were able to do if we were able to win, even though he will still be in the White House for another 2 years.
What's giving you hope this week, Congressman?
What's giving me hope is, I'm going to go back to the Epstein survivors that I met with the day of the State of the Union. I mean, the courage of these women is unbelievable. And again, they're up against the most powerful people in the U.S. government who are trying to discredit them, or trying to ridicule them. And they are getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and they want the truth. We have to be a better country. There has to be justice. And just because you're rich and powerful, just because you're well-connected, doesn't mean you're above the law. And unfortunately, that has been the case in this country for far too long. Everybody is subject to the law, even the president of the United States, or even the richest person in the world, who's right now is Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have to make sure that everybody is accountable to the law. Nobody can escape justice, no matter who you are. And I had a long conversation with a number of them, and we're going to get to the truth. There will be justice here, and it's because these brave women came forward and demanded it.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts joins us every Thursday. If you've got a question for the Congressman, you can send it to me, thefab413@nepm.org, and I will ask him. Thanks as always, Congressman.
All the best. Thanks.
And now for the first agricultural product of the year, which will be celebrated all over the state this weekend as we head to the hills in pursuit of maple at Boyden Brothers in Conway.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Dean's Beans Organic Coffee, a locally based, worker-owned company committed to social and environmental responsibility, roasting fair trade, organic, shade-grown coffee since 1993. DeansBeans.com.
There are several times of the agricultural year that we look forward to, and this is one of them. It is a glimmer of a sign of hope that we're eventually going to get out of this winter, and it is almost Massachusetts Maple Month, and this weekend is the kickoff to Mass Maple season. So we're at a sugar shack at Boyden Brothers in Conway with Claire Morneau from CISA, the local hero, folks, community involved in sustaining agriculture, and a Boyden himself, Howard Boyden. Thank you for welcoming us here to your maple sugaring operation.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm very glad to have you here. And yeah, we are on the edge of winter, but I don't think the precipice is in sight quite yet. The long-range forecast is showing pretty cold out into next week.
Including the groundhog.
Yes, including, yes. You know, he's right 46% of the time, so.
I'm right 46% of the time.
Just like a broken clock, it's right twice a day. So anyway, yeah, we have actually gotten started. We headed out about 3 weeks ago, started pulling our lines up and whatnot, and doing repairs, and started tapping, and we've made 50 gallons of syrup so far.
Oh, wow. What is that an average for the close to the end of February?
We're right around where we should be.
To me, I thought it's been so cold, it's been so snowy that maybe the sap isn't even running yet.
Oh, no. The angle of the sun's very strong. And those trees, they're little solar heaters. And once the sun gets on them, if you've got a tap in them, the sap's going to come out. You know, if you walk down the sidewalk where there's actually still some living maple trees the road salt hasn't killed yet, you'll notice that it drips on the sidewalk anytime starting in February because of the pressure in the tree. And so if we happen to be there and have a little tap in the tree, we can catch that sap.
So the trees want to explode with sap, like a pimple. It's our maple sugarers' job to pop them.
Well, the truth is they actually do create a pressure inside up to 40 pounds per square inch. And the cambium layer on that tree can only hold so much, so they will actually erupt little cracks and start dripping out. So we tell people that we're actually, we're taking a little blood before it comes out on its own.
Yeah, you're easing the pain. It's like lancing the boil before you boil the sap.
The truth is we do it in a very sustainable way. You know, my family has been tapping a lot of the same trees for over 100 years, probably 120 years.
Wow.
Same trees.
So what is the date of the founding of Boyden Brothers Maple?
Well, I am not 100% sure. It was either the late 1800s or early 1900s. My great-grandfather used to make sugar, and he would boil it all the way down into hard sugar cakes because you used that before the sugarcane trade got very big in the United States. So it was something that was used for trade and sale. And he had a flat pan on a brick arch in the old sugar house at the farm. And my grandfather in the 1920s bought the first maple syrup evaporator. The switch had been away from the block cake sugar, and he went to making maple syrup. And then in 1966, my mother and father built this place here on Route 116 in hopes of getting some business from the local traffic. And that's really been our story. And we make 1,000 gallons a year and we sell it all.
Can you talk about just modern maple sugar techniques? You know, it's not buckets and taps anymore.
Okay, the reason you don't see the buckets and taps so much is that we all used galvanized buckets for years, and galvanized buckets are completely safe for maple sap until you decide to leave your sap in the bucket for 2 or 3 warm days and it ferments. When sap ferments, it becomes acidic, and that releases lead in the galvanized. And it really does take quite a lot of fermentation for that to happen. But even states like Vermont have completely outlawed galvanized buckets. And so if you're going to do buckets, you pretty much have to go to sap bags, you know, plastic bags or plastic buckets or spun aluminum or stainless steel. The other reason we don't do so many buckets is, like I said before, the road salt has killed all of the roadside trees. And that's where the buckets were handy, these long flat stretches of road where you could put 3 buckets on a giant 200-year-old tree and come along with a 5-gallon pail and collect that sap. We've been forced to go back to the woods now because that's where the maple trees are growing. And it's hillsides, so down the hill it comes in plastic tubes to tanks at the bottom. I have 32 separate stops to pick up 3,500 taps worth of sap.
And how many trees is that?
About 3,500. Each tree gets pretty much 1 tap.
Oh, okay,
now,
some people do 2, right?
Well, out in the woods, the trees tend to be smaller because they're all reaching for sunlight and their stems are smaller. So I have what I call the tree hugger's rule. And basically, if you reach around that tree and give it a hug, if you can't touch your fingertips and it's got a healthy crown, then it can get a second tap. But up until then, from the time it's as big around as a sap bucket at chest height until you can't touch your fingertips, which is a 6-foot circumference on me, depending on how heavy my jacket is, you know, then you're at just 1 tap. So the majority of the trees on tubing are 1 tap per tree.
How has the tapping this year compared to other years? Because, like, the last 2 years, we've kind of gotten traditional New England winter, but before that, it was getting warmer and people were tapping, like, into, like, early January, mid-January.
Yeah, we heard MLK Day a couple of years ago.
Oh, sure. Now, I used to have a 40-hour-a-week job, and I would tell the people that I worked for, I'll be out of here February 14th. And it got to the point where I was missing several runs by Valentine's Day. Geez, I've already missed 10, 20% of my season. Now I'm retired. I get in the woods when I want to, and I'd say this year when it warms up, we're going to have every tap in and ready to rock and roll.
We're with Howard Boyden at Boyden Brothers Maple on Route 116 in Conway, right across from the grammar school, right down the street from Pekarsky Sausage, underwriter of NEPM, but where we get a lot of sausages personally whenever.
Because it's delicious.
We do love it.
One day they'll bring their smoked turkeys back. Please.
And then we're going to get some maple syrup here too, I'm sure, because it's the season. 'Tis the season, and we're mentioning about the weather and how that has changed over the years. But has it been more normal the last couple of years? Can you attribute it to anything? Is it weather versus climate?
So climate is something that we've been watching since I was little. My grandfather would never tap before the 15th of March. Then my father said, 1st of March, we'd be in school vacation. Come on, Dad, let's tap. Nope, too early. By the time I took over, school vacation was the time to tap. It was perfect, last full week of February. Now it's backed up a whole month in my lifetime. So that's climate. Weather, on the other hand, look at the Northeast. I mean, we have been socked in cold.
Yeah.
When Denver has had 74 degrees already 2 weeks ago.
Except for that one football game.
Yeah. And you used to be able to look at the weather map and say, well, here it comes. Well, here it came and here it missed us. So here we stay in our deep freeze. And that's all polar vortex and that kind of stuff. And luckily, where the maple trees grow, we tend to get the weather extremes. And that's what makes the sap run. Without, flat weather, sap won't run. Tree will not create pressure. They have to have weather extremes. It's got to go below freezing and warm above freezing for the sap to run. It's just the mechanics of the maple tree.
Obviously, snow is part of the deal if you're going to be a maple sugar farmer. But how does it impact your season when you get a lot of late season snow like we've had?
Well, it makes it a real pain. Well, no, I have, along the Whately Road, going from Conway to Whately, I have 7 barrels where the lines come down across the tree. Well, guess what? They're all out on the back of that truck because we took them all in before the storm. So the snowplows didn't plow them into the bank. That's a problem, but snow also helps us later on in the season when we're looking for those freezing nights. You get a nice, cool, clear night that maybe in Northampton or Amherst, it's going to be 35 degrees. That snow is going to bring the temperature down for us. We're going to get a freeze and the sap will run the next day. So actually we like to see a snow cover. The other thing snow cover does, it blankets the ground so that the frost can come out under the snow so the trees can get a drink when they need to, because for sap to come out, water needs to go in. When the ground is frozen hard on an open winter, sometimes it takes a real long time for the trees to open up and run because they just plain can't get a drink.
The little shack that we're in right now is half store, but half evaporation situation. So take us through your equipment over here.
It's actually 20% store, and the rest is evaporation. So right where I'm standing, 12 feet from the wall, is where the store ends and production starts.
Yeah.
This is the warm area. So after the syrup is made, it's warm. It gets brought in here, it gets filtered, it gets put into the water jacket canner, which holds it at 180 degrees, and then it gets filled into bottles.
Bottles made in Turner's Falls, I think?
As of right now, but we'll see what goes on.
Oh,
there.
dear, I haven't heard that story yet.
Yeah, so we have those. We also do glass. This is a jug filler right here. You put a bottle under and you turn it on, push the button, and when the syrup gets up to the top, it shuts off.
Cool. Like filling up your gas tank?
Yeah, that's one that I built in 1985. Then it was after I took over the sugar house. And, you fill in a gallon jug, it's real easy to turn away. And I saw too much syrup going on the floor, and I said, I know that there's electronics out there that will do this. And I had a friend who was very clever. It worked at UMass. And he said, oh, yeah. And he went to Radio Shack and he got a level sensor for windshield washer fluid that you used to be able to put in your car way back in the 1980s before they came standard that way. And he adapted that technology to this valve. And this has been filling jugs for us since 1985.
Well, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I also noticed that you have sample tasting.
We do. Whenever there's steam coming out the roof, there's always samples available. Jean saved aside
Jean is your wife.
a little sample. Jean is my wife and my absolute partner in this process. There is no way that Boyden Brothers Maple would exist as it does today were it not for Jean Boyden. I'm not kidding you. One day when we were dating, it was a terrible day. It was rainy out and cold, and we were going out to collect sap. That's when we did buckets. We went out there to collect some sap, and I drove by my grandmother's house, and I knew she was in making maple candy, and I stopped and I said, come on. Took her in the house, introduced her to my grandmother for the first time. I said, Gram's making candy, have her show you how. And the rest is history.
Now is it true she's in the Massachusetts Maple Hall of Fame because of that?
Actually, the International Maple Hall of Fame.
I didn't even know there was one.
Yes, there is. It is in Krogan, New York, which is a funny place. But, well, no, funny place for it to be because it's out of the way, but it's almost in the exact center of the maple producing region. Okay, if you think all the way down to West Virginia and all the way up into northern Quebec and Ontario and out to Nova Scotia and as far west as Wisconsin, northern New York is actually the place to have it.
Yeah.
And both Jean and I are going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame on May 23rd.
Wow.
We were both nominated at the same time, but separately.
So what
Strangely
categories?
enough. There's no categories to it. That's the thing about the Hall of Fame. It is not the outside looking in. It's the inside looking around. You're elected to that by your peers. I'm the past president of the North American Maple Syrup Council, and I've been involved in local maple promotion ever since 1985. I'm just a little toad in the woods, okay, compared to maple, some of these people that tap 100,000 taps and whatnot. But I guess somebody figures I was a little bit effective. I don't know if you've ever seen the phrase, make maple a staple, but I coined that phrase as part of a contest to come up with a catch line for maple that North American Maple Syrup Council has, and several states have adopted that as their state slogan. You know, it's funny, every now and then a little toad in the woods, if he doesn't get stepped on, can actually amount to something.
I go to this festival in Tennessee every year, and what I bring is maple. It's the most appreciated gift when I go to Tennessee because they can't get it.
Now, this that you're tasting now is golden syrup. This used to be what everybody wanted. First run syrup, they used to call it fancy. Over the years, people have acquired a taste for the darker varieties on their table syrup because they're a little bit stronger. You notice how light and almost vanilla-y this taste is? This is what Jean and I save for making candy and cream. Because when you make candy and cream, you're condensing those flavors. And it makes the best candy and cream. And Jean has been 5 times first place international candy competition.
Right out of Little Conway.
5 times. Yep. So like I say, she's not standing here in the room right now, but I'll tell you what, this place would not be what it is. There would still be Boyden Brothers Maple, but it would be a whole lot less than what it is right now. When we decided to take it retail, my father always made syrup mostly for the wholesale market. He took his barrels to Vermont, of all places, and sold them. Well, that's how they get a reputation for good syrup, is by using some of ours.
Yeah,
But
right.
Anyway, I have some friends over the border that'll be putting a target on my back for that one. But he used to take it there, and in 85, when we took over, we decided, there's more money to be made in maple syrup than just getting that one small check at the end of the season. My grandfather always said, sugaring gets the men and horses in shape for summer. He never said it pays the taxes. He never even said it buys the groceries. Selling for the bulk market, if you're not big and have a super efficient operation, it's really hard to do. But the retail market is a full-time job. Jean's making candy almost every week throughout the year.
Wow.
Jean has had so much to do with the development of this business. And she's such a humble person, you wouldn't get her to say 4 words to this microphone.
That is not why she's not here. We would have tried to get her to say more than 4 words.
It's like, no, she ran from us. It's fine.
She is regretful, but she did make those awesome cookies over
really
there.
good.
Yeah.
And this tastes almost like bourbon.
And the earlier stuff, the first run stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, often is a little more sugary, while the later stuff, the darker stuff, is more mapley.
Well, okay. It all has the same amount of sugar.
Okay.
It all will measure up to 67.5 brix, or right around 67 brix, B-R-I-X, the measurement of sugar, but it's different kinds of sugar. Your early season syrup is mostly sucrose, which is a complex sugar. It's still two molecules attached together. As the season goes on and it warms up, natural occurring bacteria that are in the environment begin to feed on that sap as soon as it comes out of the tree. Coming out of the tree, it's always the same. That feeding does two things. It basically takes away some of our sugar, so you're ending up getting less syrup out of the amount of sap that you bring in, but it also breaks down the complex sugars into simple sugars, breaks it down into dextrose and fructose, and they caramelize differently in the boiling process to give you that stronger flavor. So if you caramelize, say you caramelize onions with pure cane sugar, yeah, they'll caramelize a little bit, but if you take some brown sugar, and brown sugar, same way. There's more simple sugars in that. You'll get that stronger flavor. Well, the same thing's going on here with maple syrup.
I have to say, I feel like I had absorbed what used to be known as grade B, but now it's all grade A, but like the propaganda in support of dark syrup only. And that lighter syrup is also really, really delicious.
It's incredible. It really is. It's still what I reach for. But I'll tell you what, if there's a lot of kids around the table, I'm putting the medium amber on the table because they'll just drink this like it's water. But it is totally a personal taste. I have people that come in and they want the very darkest syrup we have, and they put it in their iced coffee and on their yogurt, and they absolutely love it. So we have something for everybody here. And that's a good thing, because otherwise it would go in a barrel and go to Vermont and help them get a good reputation for their syrup.
I wanted to ask about what you see in the future for the maple industry, the local maple industry, with climate change, international competition or cooperation, depending on what happens. Just what do you think is coming in the coming years for maple?
I think the biggest problem with maple is not necessarily going to be climate change, but I think it's going to be things related to it. Mostly the things that worry me the most are invasives. Invasive pests, invasive species, and of course the use of road salt. We overuse road salt horrifically now. It just makes me so sad that people can't afford to buy snow tires and take their foot off the gas a little bit and think they have to see a black road, 8 o'clock every morning. But I don't see that changing because people like what they like, and that's that. I think the business is going to stay strong as long as we don't get hit by Asian longhorn beetle or something like that. We are in the maple area. Slowly, it is moving north, but West Virginia still has a thriving maple industry in the mountains. And that makes me feel like, well, we're pretty good here. Things are going to have to warm up an awful lot. It's going to be more volatile. I think we're going to have more very poor years and more very good years because of the volatility. That's what I've seen with the weather anyway. 100-year storms now happen every 5 years. The actual weather is going to affect us more and more. And so we have to take steps to mitigate that, and we are. And there is an awful lot going on in mitigation, like the use of vacuum. Last year, our season, we actually had 3 freeze-thaw cycles, solid freeze-thaw cycles. That's all. Usually we get 12 or thereabouts. And without the use of vacuum, the only vacuum that we have is what we call natural vacuum. We use a smaller diameter tubing so that the meniscus doesn't break in it, and it actually pulls the sap from the trees. Without that, the sap would have stopped running the first day after a freeze, but we would get 3 days of run. So people who have one large sugar bush or 2 or 3 even that they can all put together with electricity nearby, they can run vacuum on these trees and get the extended runs. And that's something that I'm doing now on our larger sugar bushes, only with solar-powered vacuum pumps because we have no electricity near them. So we have 3 little solar-powered vacuum pumps. I tried one, a Beta one built by the Bosworth company last year, 12 volt, and used a 400-watt solar panel, and it worked incredibly well. So thanks to Harold Grinspoon,
nice.
I now have 2 more, and I will probably have more in the future.
We always hear about the taps going up. What's it like at the end of the season when all of that has to come down?
Yeah. Okay, so the very first thing that we have to do is collect in all of our tanks and barrels, get them off the side of the road. This parking lot will be literally half full of tanks and barrels. The evaporator gets flushed out, cleaned out. We clean all of that stuff. And on the weekends, when I have a crew around, we put backpacks on and we head to the woods. And we start at the top and we work our way down that tubing, washing the tubing out. You take the tap out of the tree, wash it out, cut the spout off, plug off the tubing, all 3,500 of them. And then some of our tubing, about 1,000 taps, actually go through people's backyards. So we have to wind that up and bring it home and store it. And you better be good at putting tags on it, because what fits Jim's backyard isn't going to fit Tom's backyard next year. So we use really good duct tape and indelible markers to mark the tubing. And of course, we all have abbreviations. And if, say, Charlie marks the tubing, Howard's reading it and saying, I don't know where this goes. And if Howard marks it, Charlie's reading it, he says, I don't know where this goes. So it's always fun putting it back out in the spring. I did want to show you the nuts and bolts. We talked about the woods, and we talked about processing and filtering. Oh, no, that there, I saved this. This is what comes out of the syrup. That's called sugar sand, okay?
Oh.
Weird.
And that precipitates, that's the minerals that precipitate during the boiling process, much like a tea kettle will get minerals in it over years of use.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, we are taking, yesterday's sap that came in was about 49 gallons of sap to boil down. So you're doing a lot of boiling to get rid of those minerals. And that comes out in the filter. If you did not filter it, it would settle in the jug, but that last half inch in the jug, it would be like toothpaste. It's gritty. Okay. That gets taken out here. I bring the syrup in from the evaporator, and I'll show you the evaporator if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, but what can you do anything with that sugar sand? Is it usable for any other purpose?
It's actually mixed with food-grade diatomaceous earth.
Oh, cool.
And we mix that in. It goes in here. It comes out there in the filter. And what DE does is it breaks the surface tension on the syrup so that it can pass through the filters. So the filters are nothing but a piece of paper. That's what the syrup is passing through right there.
So it looks like
It's like a Chemex filter.
or a parchment paper.
Parchment, yeah, kind of.
Thick parchment.
Thick, but porous. But if you just tried to, under pressure, push maple syrup through it, syrup is funny stuff. It's both sticky and slippery at the same time. And it does not like to break its surface tension to go through something like this. So the diatomaceous earth, if you were to look at it under the microscope, looks like a bunch of little multi-pointed stars. And what that does is it clumps together, touching each other, and allows a path for that syrup to pass through the filter. The nice clear syrup ends up in the canner. And the syrup gets pumped under pressure into this cavity right there.
So it's like a metal bracket
Yeah.
that looks like it's on some sort of a vice
And then
system.
And then it's forced up against this waffle plate here, goes through
It's foreshadowing to where it will end up.
goes through the paper, and then back out these little holes here, and back out the other side, and up into the canner. It's a very simple machine that most people look at and say, what is that, and how does it possibly filter syrup?
It kind of looks like a cider press.
Right. Or something that might be at the gym if you were going to do like the Nautilus.
In my previous job, many years ago, back in the early 80s, late 70s, I used to build these out of cypress for filtering cider and wine. And in here is the evaporator. Now,
Evaporator has its own separate room.
I said this side is warm, and this is where warm stops.
Thanks for the warning.
Sap wants to stay cold because I talked to you about that bacterial action in the sap. Well, we want to keep that syrup as nice and fresh as we can. So I want to see my sap going from 34 degrees to boiling as soon as possible. No fooling around in between. So this room is cold. This is a super insulated wood-fired arch. Wood is right there behind you, behind that roll-up door. What you see here is permeate that comes from reverse osmosis machine. It's the water we take out of the sap. Mm-hmm. It's what we call hungry water. It has no minerals whatsoever in it. It's 100% pure H2O. And you see this little bit of residue in the bottom of the pan that looks a little gritty, that's the minerals. That's the sugar sand right there.
That's cool.
Now, one of those things that you learn along the way is you need to keep your pan really clean, because if you don't, the minerals build up on the bottom to the point where they'll actually insulate and burn the pan, and you'll get a flavor called burnt niter in your syrup. And it's just a non-desirable flavor. Depending on how much I concentrate the sap with the reverse osmosis, I will make as little as 10 gallons an hour or as much as 60. And when I start making 60, that's when Gene wants to lock the door, because it's very hard to keep up filtering the syrup. I talked about reverse osmosis. I've been using it since 1981.
It draws the water out of the sap, so it makes it easier to boil. It's a process.
It's actually a mechanical process. It forces the water through membranes that will only allow water molecules to come through. This is my feed tank, this 800-gallon tank here. This is what holds the concentrated sap and feeds it to the evaporator. Once again, cold. The RO machine, however,
reverse osmosis.
Here. This
is like a closet with a bunch.
I keep just above freezing. This is insulated as well as a beer cooler. This is a 3-membrane reverse osmosis machine which will throw away water. It will pull the water out of the sap at 18 gallons a minute. And I control the rate of release from the membranes, and that's what will determine how high a concentrate I make.
You must have been an early adopter of that then.
1981, my father bought the first one, and there were 3 people in the state, all bought them in 1981, and he was one of them. 1981 was a phenomenal sugar year. We've never had one like it since. We always made right around a quart per tap. We were running buckets back then, 2,000 buckets. And we made a half a gallon per tap that year. We made our first 1,000-gallon year. And my father said, something has to change. The woodshed was empty halfway through. He converted the evaporator to oil. That's something that he decided was pretty good. And he stayed with oil. But once our kids were on the ground and Grandpa was gone, I got to thinking, geez, our kids are never going to know how to boil sap with a wood-fired evaporator. So we bought a wood-fired evaporator from a sugar house that had been caved in by a tree, but we dug the evaporator out and bought that and put it in the sugar house beside the oil-fired one and taught the kids how to boil with wood, and I absolutely fell in love with it all over again. The old oil-fired one is sold and gone and making syrup in Ashfield, and this is a new wood-fired one. 6 years ago we bought this one, and hopefully it's the last evaporator I ever buy.
What about your kids? Do you anticipate that there's another generation of Boyden brothers coming up?
Well, they were all here last weekend in the woods helping set, and one of them's an engineer, the other one's a doctor, but I suspect that they will keep coming back, and this fella that's outside putting wood in is my brother's son, my nephew. Yeah, there's good family support here, and there has to be.
What's this hash mark list behind us?
Oh, okay.
Khalees loves the lists that farmers have to create their organizational structure.
That's actually a very good question, because when I'm in here producing syrup, I can make about 30 gallons of syrup in this evaporator before the minerals are going to build up too much to where I'm going to start getting a burnt niter flavor in my syrup. So what I have to do is reverse the flow in this pan. You notice this pan is divided into little channels.
Yep.
Right here is where I was taking it off yesterday. So it was coming in from the flue pan where it does its initial boiling, and then it goes into here, back and forth across, dead ends right here. Temperature probe would be in here, and when it got to 219.9 degrees yesterday, the valve opens, lets it out. And then it closes when it changes by 1/10 of a degree. After 30 gallons, or 6 pails full thereabouts, 6 to 10 pails full, depending on which pail I'm using, how strong I feel that day, I have to change sides, and which is a matter of swapping valves around here and moving some of the syrup that's almost syrup from one to the other with a pail. It'll actually happens under full fire, but it's real easy when you're making syrup. Was that number 6 or was that number 7? Which pail? So there's the hash marks right there.
Gotcha.
Okay, and that's how we keep track. In every pail that I carry in to Gene, I put down the hash mark, and that way I know when I have to change sides.
We could go to Pekarski's and see how the sausage gets made right down the street, but no, we're here watching how the syrup gets made. Now we're back into the warm.
There's one more thing I should mention is if you can't get your maple syrup at Boyden Brothers, you can always get it at Pekarski's. Because we are not open, on a regular basis. We're open when there's a live body here.
Yeah.
If you see a live body, stop in, we'll sell you syrup, candy, cream, whatever. But look to Pekarski's because they have our full product line along with several other stores too. Food City, Apex Orchards, Baker's Country Store, Natural Roots, the Mill Village store, country store down in Amherst also has our syrup. So there are a lot of places to get it.
Howard Boyden, who is about to be inducted into the International Maple Hall of Fame with your wife, Jean, what does that mean to you, the two of you carrying on this legacy that's well over 100 years old now, here in Conway at Boyden Brothers Maple? What does it mean to be acknowledged by your peers in that way?
Well, it's an incredibly humbling experience. That's the only way I can describe it. I nearly fell over when they called my name at the conference last October. We were in Michigan at the Maple Conference, and they announced the inductees, and I almost fell over, but Jean said, go get your award. I stood up, I was walking to get my award, and they called Jean as the second person, and I looked back, and she literally was falling out of her chair. I went back and got her and brought her up. It means so much because, like I say, this is from the inside looking around. And these are the movers and the shakers. It really means a lot. It always meant a lot for us to take home some ribbons and whatnot and prizes from the international judging because we always said that this is where the big boys come out to play. Well, the big boys counted us among them, and we're very humbled by it. And it's an incredible honor.
What a pleasure to talk to somebody who's so knowledgeable about this subject. This has been really, really great.
Well, I am maple for sure. There's
Your
no.
veins.
It is. It's
So we're gonna tap you.
That's murder.
It is in my veins for sure, and it's something like I say, if this place burned to the ground tomorrow, I'd be out behind the house, with a little flat pan making my syrup because it just has to happen.
Oh, there's a crazy little shack beyond.
And not to double down and endorse a place that we've been, but her maple candy is some of the best that I've had for sure. No graininess at all, just totally smooth and really floral
Yeah,
tasting.
you've been handing it out to our guests and friends over there. Phil Bishop, who's pushing buttons over there, had one. Corey Harris got one yesterday.
No, he refused. He's like, I'm off sugar. And I'm like, but this is really
This
good
is different
maple
type
candy.
of sugar.
It's like, it's from trees.
Yes, and Jean Boyden did show up while we were leaving, and it was great to honor her in absentia with Howard, and congratulations to the two of them for being in the International Maple Makers Hall of Fame. And
Indeed.
Thanks again to Claire Morneau from CISA, the local hero, folks.
So go out and celebrate Mass Maple Weekend this weekend because it's happening. On the next Fabulous 413, we hear about a festival that seeks to connect students with the greater community and policies made there with the Policy Playhouse at Smith College.
And we'll meet the oldest student-run organization on the UMass campus as they celebrate their 120th year, the UMass Theater Guild.
We'll hear about an event with the Nolan Bika Project this weekend.
And live music for Live Music Friday with Madison Curbelo, who's playing the Drake next week. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers.